So, as I say, welcome to Wiser Studies webinar on personal statements. This is aimed at the UK university application system. So hopefully, as I say, you all have dreams of aspirations of studying, whether it's Oxford, Cambridge, or any UK university. The personal statement's a vital part of everything you do in your application. So a couple of bits of admin. I'll aim for this to be about 30 minutes. We'll allow time for questions. If you do have any questions, it'd be great if you can type them into the chat so that we can answer them at the end. And also this is being both recorded and shared live over YouTube. So you will forever be preserved on film. So I hope you're all okay with that. By way of introduction, my name's Matt. I went to Cambridge, what feels like a long time ago now. But I studied English at Magdalen College. I can tell you a little bit about my own experience, but that's kind of not relevant now because a lot of it's changed. I've been working in international education for well over 10 years, and I've seen a lot of changes to the university system, the school system, etc. So what I'm going to try and do is give you the most up-to-date, interesting kind of ways and a few really kind of essential tips and tricks. So I can't go into all the detail. I can't go into every single subject, but what I can do is give you some sort of really useful overviews. And I don't want to scare you, but I do want to let you know just how difficult this is and how important it is to your success and your application. And just to give you an idea, we do know what we're talking about. So the company has, over the past 5 years, helped over 1,500 students, most of whom are applying to Oxbridge. So when I say Oxbridge, hopefully you know, but that's both Oxford University and Cambridge University. And the average success rate there is normally 18%. So if you apply, you have 18% chance of getting in. However, our success rate of getting students into Oxbridge, so Oxford and Cambridge, is 43%. So it's over double. So we do know what we're talking about. And all the kind of information I'm going to give you is based on a lot of research, a lot of academic profiling, and a lot of experience of working with students over the years. So what I'm going to cover in this sort of 30-minute-ish section is what sort of content should you include in a personal statement? There is quite a scientific formula. There are proportions, there are recommended structures and ways to do it and bits to include. It will change slightly by subject, but there are broad overarching rules that we can do. We'll talk about that structure as well. We'll look at what makes a good introduction, conclusion, how do you link everything together. And again, it can be very broad, quick overviews to give you an idea of how difficult and how challenging and how important the personal statement is. And then also we'll look a little bit at how to develop those critical reflections. And I'll talk a bit more about critical reflections, but they are so essential to this. It shows that you're questioning, it shows that you're challenging ideas. And kind of the one thing I want to get across right away, and it will come up a bit more, is the personal statement is not a list of what you like or what you do. It is a chance for you to show how your mind works. It's a chance for you to show how you reflect, how you analyze, not even necessarily offering an opinion. It's offering an opinion and then saying why, or even challenging it. So that's kind of what we're going to go to. And then we'll have a Q&A at the end. Like I say, type any questions into the chat box, and we'll also open the floor at the end for the last slides as well. So when I say content of what should go into your personal statement, it is quite a scientific formula. Not everyone's the same. The whole point of a personal statement is you've got to stand out. It's probably, if you're applying to Oxford or Cambridge, maybe 15 to 20% of the overall judgment of your application. The rest is a little bit of grades, interviews, admissions tests. But it is your first impression. It's the gates opener. It's the kind of way that you catch someone's first attention. These admissions tutors are looking at thousands of applications, and to this personal statement for any university, any UK university, is your chance, sometimes your only chance, if you don't have an interview, to grab their attention and to immediately make them think, wow, okay, that's really cool. I like this person. They've got some interesting ideas and it's unique. So the content of a good personal statement can be broken down into three quite distinct areas. The first and most important, because universities are academic institutions, it's nice to know that you did some charity work somewhere, but if it doesn't link to the academic subject, it's probably not relevant. So your reflections on wider reading and the areas of academic interest is probably the most important thing, and that should make up about 70%. And I'll look a little bit more at that content and how that breaks down and how you should integrate that into the personal statement as we go. 20% should be focused on super curricular. Again, we'll discuss that in more detail. But these are activities which are academic activities outside of the classroom. So you can see there things like work experience, particularly for medicine, vital, research projects, things like an EPQ even though they're included in the classroom sometimes, they are sort of different and outside your classroom learning. And it shows that you're passionate in what you want to do and that you are looking for opportunities to engage with your academic area outside of your basic A-level IB school curriculum. We also have academic competitions, etc., etc. So about 20% of it should be linked into there. And then finally, there is a little bit of extracurricular. So that's things like, you know, sort of head boy, you've done a coding course, you've done something outside of academia, but again, it should be relevant. And I'll talk about how you use that later as well. So that's kind of how a personal statement should be structured. That should be how, at the end of the 4,000 characters, or which makes up a personal statement, so you have very limited space, 70% of that should be the academic, 20% supercurricular, 10% extracurricular. So we have analyzed these statements, and this is kind of the formula that our academic team have come up with. And then jumping into the structure of it. So how do you integrate that content? Don't list it like that. So don't do 70% academic, then 20% supercurricular work experience, then 10% extracurricular. That's not how you do it. You've got to integrate everything together. You've got to make links between everything. You've got to focus on sort of, you know, if your passion is, I studied English literature, so I managed to link some sort of geography fieldwork to the Spanish Civil War. Again, very back in the day that was fine, but maybe not so interesting now. But you know, what we're trying to do is go for a much more integrated thing. So you can, and what you're trying to do is focus it around 3 topics of extreme depth. So really it's introduction, 3 extreme depth topics. And what do I mean by depth? So depth is a kind of really detailed area of your subject that's not broad. It's not like love in Shakespeare. It's something much more focused than that. And having said that, the only way you can get that extreme depth is by having breadth of knowledge. So you have to be widely read in your subject to be able to choose these 3 areas of extreme depth. So within those areas of depth and within those kind of detailed areas, you've got to be able to draw on experience that make the supercurricular relevant, you know, sort of show what reading you've done beyond your A-level. Don't list what you've done for A-level, IB, etc. That is not relevant. That's in other pieces of information in your application. This is stuff that you've done outside of your curriculum. You've got to have read much more widely. You've got to have, you know, examined text and case studies and medical theories or engineering theories, whatever subject you're going for, way outside the classroom. And then within that, you pick 3 topics and you go into those. So detailed introduction, and we'll look at introductions. And then you're looking at paragraphs really split into 3 different areas of depth in the subject you're interested in. However, there is a little bit, you know, don't try and link extracurricular into everything, because that doesn't really apply. So you can add that 10% of extracurricular at the end. But the supercurricular, the academic reading should all be linked and integrated in the 3 areas as you're structuring your personal statement. And there is a chance to introduce a 4th academic area in the introduction. We'll talk through different types of introduction, but if you launch straight into it in the introduction, you're not wasting time sort of talking about quotes or anything like that. You can actually get 4 areas of depth. And the reason these things are important, these depths, is because it shows that you've read something unique. It shows that you're interested. And if you do have an interview, so medicine or Oxford, Cambridge, and some of the other top universities, this will guide your interviewer to areas that you're comfortable with. So if you write some really cool things about, you know, some really interesting three things in your subject area that you're passionate about, that's what you're going to be asked about. So you can kind of direct the conversation towards this in the interviews later down, or later on in the application process. So that's why this is the structure we recommend. 3 topics, extreme depth, 70% of it is academic content, wider reading outside of your current syllabus, 20% supercurricular, and then at the end, if it's relevant, again, we'll look at it a bit more, extracurricular activity as well. So what makes a good introduction? So before you go into those 3 areas of extreme depth, what we're looking at is how do you launch into the introduction? Again, it's got to be snappy. It's got to be quick. You've got to grab their attention. Again, remember, they are reading hundreds, thousands of personal statements. Don't be cliched. Don't resort to sort of, and sort of waffle, and don't waste space. You've got to go straight in and seize the opportunity. It's your chance to hook their attention straight off. So there are different types of introductions. The quote is probably one of the most popular ones. It's a bit cliched and a bit too common. Having said that, did I use it? I might have used it 15 years ago or 20 years ago, but I got away with it. So you can use a quote, but the rule of thumb is that if you Google it and it comes up, don't use it. So don't quote a famous Shakespeare line, about being indecisive, to be honest with me. You need to be judicious. So you have to actually have something quite unique from your unusual, wider reading of texts, case studies, magazines, of journals outside of the classroom. And like I say, if you Google it, it comes up, or famous quotes in medicine, famous quotes in engineering, do not use it. It's horribly cliched. They'll chuck it out straight away. It won't be considered. So it can be used, but it needs to be really carefully done. If you actually have a quote, don't force one in just because you feel you need to. The second most common one is a trigger moment. So what I mean by that is often in something like economics, or someone's grown up in maybe Hong Kong and they've seen the difference between high wealth and low wealth families, and they've been inspired to sort of research that. It could be something like medicine. Again, it's got to be really carefully thought out. It can't be generic. Don't use COVID if you're applying for medicine. Please don't use COVID. Everyone will. So if you have a really specific personal trigger moment that's genuine, you can use that, but only if it's genuine. Don't try and force it in again. The third type, and one that I mentioned before, is actually the most popular. What we would always recommend is go straight into a topic. This gives you an area for a fourth subject to talk about in depth. So you dive straight in. Don't waste time with why you inspired or why you're quoting something. Go straight into an area saying, this is an area I'm interested in, but it's controversial because blah, blah, blah. Or I don't agree with so-and-so. And the reason that who said this, and the reason I don't, has inspired me to do this. Etc. So that's a really, really great way of getting more academic content and going straight into the academic introduction. You can use a thematic introduction. So that's, as it sounds, you're introducing an overarching theme to your personal statement. So this is very difficult to do, very, very difficult, but it can be really powerful. So all of those three areas of depth will all tie back to this one overarching theme you've introduced right at the beginning. And if it's done, it's a really neat narrative. It's not a cover letter. This is a narrative. You're telling someone about yourself. And it's not a list. So if you have the ability to do that without forcing it again, that's really powerful. And then finally, enumeration. So this is great if you're going to have an interview for your application, because if you mention lots of different areas you're interested in within the first line, the interviewer is probably going to go straight to those and ask you about them. So you can list a bunch of topics that you've found really interesting in medicine before you go into your three areas of depth. So you can do that as well. But avoid the cliched openings. Don't explain what it is. Don't explain what you've studied, and don't take up too much space. It's got to be powerful, punchy, and straight in. Then you come to the academic section, so the three areas of depth. And as I say, these topics are going to be unique, complex, narrow. Don't tell someone what you've read. Don't say, I've read this, this means this, in this book, so-and-so says this. That is nonsense, and it won't get you anywhere. Instead, what you do is you critically reflect. We're going to look at that in a bit more detail as to how you do that. But ask questions, challenge ideas. Say, I found this interesting because, but actually, what was the reason I did this? Why was this the case? Why did they say this? You've got to always be asking yourself, why did I enjoy it? Why have I got this opinion? How can it be challenged? So never ever just summarize a list of things. If in your wider reading outside of your classroom, you come across something that genuinely interests you, that's one of your areas. That's it. And you've got to really focus that, and then ask yourself, why? Why am I doing this? Why have they said this? Why am I interested in it? So that's the critical reflection underpins everything. Don't list your A-level subjects, pointless. They'll see that in the other point of your applications, and don't mention anything you've learned in the classroom, unless it kind of has expanded to something you've done as a super curricular activity. Articles are great. Local recent research, TED Talks, podcasts, the news, documentaries, anything that shows you've got a passion for your subject outside of the classroom, and you've sought out different ways of expanding your knowledge in your three areas of depth. That's the most important thing. That's the unique thing that's going to set you apart for your personal statement. So those are the core, the three kind of paragraphs focusing on your your areas of depth. Critical reflection. So throughout the academic section, you should be always critically reflecting, as I've said. And there's two different types of it. As I've said, there's why does it interest you? So not I find this interesting, he said this, she said this. Why have you found it interesting? What is it about it? Is it the context in which it was written? Is it the ideas behind it? Is it the fact it's been contradicted? It's been challenged? And then always ask yourself, do you think it's true and why? Never accept something at face value. So don't believe everyone's wrong. You know, Einstein was wrong sometimes, Darwin was wrong sometimes. They're always wrong, and there's a reason for that. So is it true? Why would it be true? And why does it interest you? So everything you're doing throughout the personal statement, linking supercurricular academic interests together, these are the questions you've got to be asking yourself all the time. And this is the most important thing. Critically reflect on what you're saying and why you're saying it. And this is a little bit more detail about the critical reflections. These are some of the key questions you should be asking every time you read something as part of your wider reading in your subject area. What's the context of it? How is it informed? What are the strengths and weaknesses of the argument? Will it still be true in 10, 20, 200 years' time? What's the context of it? What biases? That's really important. Always ask yourself about biases of the text, whether it's scientific research, etc. So I bet a lot of scientists here are currently thinking, well, this is not, I mean, how do I sort of, question these clear formulas and theories? There are so many contradicting theories in every element of science, engineering, maths. You can always challenge the ideas. Maybe not some of the basic elements of it, but you can always challenge the context in which a theory was developed. At what time was it? If it was done 200 years ago, why was it done then? What was informing the author? Why did they do this? And what were they hoping to achieve? So as you're reading all of your texts, not in the classroom, but your wider reading to show your passion outside of the classroom, ask these questions, use these 6 questions to take notes and to guide your learning as you go. So actually, I would really, if you're going to do anything, take a screenshot of this particular slide and use this to guide your wider reading, which then feeds into your personal statement. And these are the questions that you've got to come out of your thinking. And this is going to be reflecting. Yeah, that's what you're reflecting on. This is kind of it. And then within the critical reflection, side of things, you're also drawing links. So if you can link between paragraphs, if you can link between your supercurricular and your academics, if you can draw it all together into a really clear narrative, that's smart. And admissions tutors love that. So it doesn't have to be an established link. You can draw the links yourselves. So if you found a theory in one way and that somehow, you can link it to another area of depth, whether it's another theorist or a different research trend or a completely different area, ask yourself how it all works together as one mass. Don't treat them as 3 isolated areas. Don't treat it as one isolated subject area. So what you're going to do is always think about how it all links together. For example, you might have done some work experience in the bank. You want to study economics. What theories have you seen actually in action as you do it, which we'll come on to a bit later. So ask about how it all works together as one mass, sort of one body of work. And you've got to be out drawing the links between everything you do at all times. That's an example. We'll skip through that for now, but it's an example of how someone has applied a certain text about US-China trade war and the prisoner's dilemma. And it's 2 different, quite disconnected theories and readings, but they've somehow managed to draw it together into what is quite a unique link. Not many people would have made that connection. And this shows originality of thought. It shows that they can, question things, they can challenge abstract ideas, etc. All of this stuff is going to impress admissions tutors. So now we're on to this supercurricular stuff. And I assume you've heard of supercurricular, but as I mentioned before, things like work experience, academic competitions, anything that is academic, but not directly linked to the classroom or wider reading within the subject. So if you have done something like work experience, so work experience, particularly for medicine, is vital. You have to show that you've done some experience with medicine. But in any area you're studying, be specific, tell them where you were, but don't say, I did this, I did that, I did that. They'll know about that. They'll understand that. It's only relevant if it is technical and links to an academic theory or an idea. Don't say that I learned this. It's not a job interview. And to be honest, Oxbridge and other top universities don't really care. What you should talk about if you use work experience is why you did it, what questions it raised, how does it link back to some other reading you've done, why did it sort of inspire you, and then you're questioning maybe what you saw and how it could be better. And you know, how does it all tie together? Again, those drawing links, yeah, the connection, the interconnectivity of everything you've done within your experience. And again, question it. Don't just list. Always critically reflect on what you saw, what you did. Is it relevant? Is an admissions tutor going to find it unique? It's got to be unique. It's got to be genuine to you as well. And again, wider extracurriculars. Quality over quantity. Again, don't use more than 3. So don't list, you know, you might be a world champion debater who's done 20 different debating competitions and 4 different Olympiads. Doesn't matter. Focus on the quality. Just put 3 in, link them to your key areas of depth and link it back to the academic potential. So as I say, make sure it's always relevant what you're doing. And this is, you know, again, things like extracurriculars. I mean, in mine, I put sort of rugby captain and head boy. That is in no way relevant these days. They're not interested in that at all. If you do some really cool things, make sure you prioritize things like responsibility, volunteering. Pioneering is quite important. So the word pioneering there means that you have done it under your own initiative. You have taken responsibility for finding something. And even if it doesn't link back to the areas of depth, which it doesn't have to, because this is the section at the end, remember, for extracurricular, it still shows that you can balance your workloads. So it is still relevant. It's not going to make a difference. It's not going to set you apart from someone else, but it is important for them to see that you can make a simple work balance. You can prioritize stuff. You're showing initiative. You're still taking you know, responsibility for your own actions. If it's linked to your academic area, perfect. Even if it's not, you know, high positions of sport, music, it does show a certain quality. It's not going to make all the difference, but it is important to include a little bit at the end. So short and put it right at the end of the penultimate. So second to last paragraph, just before your conclusion. And then we go on to conclusion. It's pretty simple. Make it snappy, make it memorable. Again, thousands of people, remember, thousands of personal statements they're looking at. It's got to be something that hooks them. It's got to be something that grabs them. If you've got a thematic approach, link it back. Try to bring it all back into one snappy moment, and make it all about what you can offer the university. Don't say what you can get out of them. They're not interested in that. They want to know what you can offer the university, what academic focus, what motivation, what's the kind of inspiration that you can offer to your subject. So that's got to be the focus. Never say, oh, I think I will get this out of university and I'll become better at this. They don't care. They really don't care. They want to know what you can bring to them, what you can bring to an interview if you're applying to a course with an interview. And that's the most important thing. So that's kind of a whistle-stop tour through the personal statement. It's get the introduction right. And there's a few different ideas to the introduction. Focus on those 3 areas of academic depth. 4, if you're using an academic introduction. Think about how your supercurricular work experience, academic competitions link to it. Make sure it's all tied together throughout 3 academic core ideas, and then make sure that conclusion grips them. It is a chance for you to show off without arrogance, and you don't have to be a genius. You know, there's going to be smarter people out there, I promise you. You know, you might have an IQ of 170 and be the best in your class. There's going to be someone out there smarter than you. I found that out the hard way. I thought I was pretty smart. And it turns out there's a lot of people out there who are smarter than you. So you don't have to be a genius, but you do have to be well prepared. A personal statement has to be completely unique to you. And you have to do, there's no way to cheat. There's no way to skip through the preparation, the wider reading. There's no way to sort of make out that you know about 3 areas in depth if you haven't already done the wider reading. And if you don't do the wider reading, you aren't passionate about your subject, and maybe you should be asking why you're studying it. So you've got to be inspired. You've got to want to study something for 3 to 4 years. And, you know, we can build up that knowledge building and wider reading. We can build up the personal statement help. And like I said, I don't want to scare anyone, but it is really important. It's your first chance. It's your sometimes only chance to grab their attention if you're applying for a non-interview undergraduate degree in the UK. So the more preparation you do, the better. Don't wake up 2 weeks before the deadlines. That's 15th of October for Oxbridge and medicine, or the 15th of January for every other university or degree. And don't do that 2 weeks beforehand and say, yeah, actually, I need to focus on my personal statement, I need to do some reading. You've got to prepare for this a year, 2 years in advance. Start doing that reading outside of the classroom now. So that is the end of the 30-minute presentation as promised. Again, as I appreciate, complete whistle-stop tour. What we can offer, if you want to, if you need that extra help, and you will need that help, we can offer workshops on personal statements, one-to-one lessons, developing that. We can do the knowledge building aspect, so we can help you build your wider reading and choose those academic themes. Further down the process, we can offer interview preparation help. We can do admissions test help as well. But the personal statements, the first thing they're going to see on the UCAS, and everything you do before that is, in the knowledge building and developing your knowledge across a subject area, has got to feed into the personal statement. If you're interested, there's a QR code on your screen. You can book a consultation. You can find out much more about your application process, your opportunities, what you need to do. And from that, like I say, Wiser Study are very happy to guide you in your process. And we can use our expert tutors. We have about 300 to 400 Oxbridge educated tutors available to look at your personal statement, all of whom have gone through the process, all of whom know what they're talking about, all of whom have really specific, interesting areas they can share with you and help develop. So those are the ways to contact us. Please do scan the codes. It'll take you straight to a form to book a consultation. You can see the email, the WhatsApp, and the website there as well. And we would be delighted to work with you. The consultation, as I say, will give you an idea. That's all I have to cover. I say I want to keep it snappy. I don't want to keep you waiting. But I just wanted to show there is a formula, an approach to personal statements. However, the uniqueness is essential. So what I've just said, without the one-to-one help, might not be much use to you. So you've got, everything's got to be personal to you. And just make sure that you're passionate and that you're doing this for the right reasons. You've got the wider reading in place, and you are really interested to expand beyond the basic textbooks you're doing at A-level at the moment. So that's all I have to say for now. So thank you very much for attending once again. If you do have any questions, please use the contact details. We'll share the links with you. And please be in touch with Shirok and her team, and they can guide you for everything you possibly need. Best of luck in your applications. I hope you can apply to top UK universities and you're very successful in whatever you choose to do. So thank you very much to everyone watching. Lovely to see you all, and have a lovely evening or afternoon, depending on where you are in the world.